Hi, Spike.
Hi, Michelle.
So, most of you watching won't know Spike's face, but you'll know some of her work through being the editor for John's channel. So, she gets the lovely pleasure of our ums and ahs and editing out our bad jokes and our mistakes when we feel embarrassed that we made mistakes. And yeah, so she knows all of our, yeah.
Oh, and don't forget putting up every little book that you mention in the corner there.
Yeah, don't envy you with that, with all of the references that John makes.
I find it a wonderful challenge.
Yeah, I can tell that you do. And yeah, so now you've got some limelight and we're chatting more, which is lots of fun. And we get to talk about the fun stuff.
Oh, yes, very fun stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So,
We were
cyberbullying,
cyberbullying. That's
which
right.
we
First of
both
all,
had some.
yeah, why don't we start with the definition from the Cyberbullying Research Center? I will put the link below.
Okay.
Cyberbullying is intentional and repeated harm inflicted on others through the use of electronic devices. So it's like regular bullying. And there's three things that make it. It must be willful and repeated. There must be intent to do harm, and usually, but not always, involving some imbalance of power. And sometimes that imbalance of power can just be in the minds of the people there, like say in a school system. A 5-year-old doesn't have power over any other 5-year-olds, you'd think, but if you were one of those 5-year-olds, there's one of them's in charge and you know who it is, like a little wolf pack. So
Mm. So this is
ano-
going to be interesting with the intent to harm question.
yeah, because if you're not really intending to harm, it isn't. But yeah, the people who are doing it, if they're intending to harm, or even just, we can go on what's the difference between trolling and bullying too, and whether or not you really intend to do harm by, bugging somebody until they explode. Is that really harming them?
Mm.
There's a gray area, I'd have to say. But also it's constant because, cyber world's not limited by time or space. Here we are halfway across the world from each other and talking in live space. And also we've got, an incident. You've got your phone all the time. It's
Yeah.
always there on your hip. Your devices are always on. We're always connected so that it can be constant and instant portable access. Then it's
Mm.
also anonymous. A lot of the time, the folks, you don't know their exact name. If they're bullying you, they can be totally anonymous,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's impossible to trace. It's also impersonal because a lot of people, I found this the case with a lot of people who aren't realizing that they're causing harm, or is that they just forget that there's another living, feeling, breathing person on the other side of that keyboard.
Yeah, it feels so much less personal, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's one particular case I can think of where there's one internet forum where somebody will, mm, you shouldn't drink in cyber talk anyway. And this person is an angry drunk, and you can tell when the liquor has been drunk just a little bit too much and the insults start flowing. I've been told that this person is perfectly lovely in real life, but online, no compassion, no anything.
Mm.
It also can be on a massive scale, so that say somebody puts up a video on YouTube, somebody all of a sudden, instead of just one little schoolyard of bullies or one office of bullies, you've got thousands of people from all over the world.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so well, maybe we'll come on to the definition of trolling afterwards, because I'm intrigued on the difference, because actually I've never
Yeah,
looked
I've
that
never
up.
really thought about that either. So we are going to chew it out, and then that will be the accepted definition for everybody on the internet all across the world from now on.
Yeah, because I'm
Mhm.
just thinking about like how I use the terms, and like
Yeah.
there's a page on my website where I called it cyberbullying, and I've put all the screenshots of the
Mhm.
trolling that I've received that I experience as abusive. But sometimes I think, okay, is it fair to say that that's cyberbullying? Because when a person's still in the group, so all of the trolling that I receive, most of it is from people who are still in the NKT. There's the odd one or two from people who are, they still identify as Buddhist, but they're in a different group. But mostly it's current members. And so when they, at first, when I started receiving it, I could only experience it as abuse. Like, this person is like the perpetrator and I'm the victim kind of feeling, right? But then over time, I became more aware of like their own confusion, and how seeing someone that some of them actually knew me in person, say, you know, things about the group, how much pain they're in, and how they, like, they're also really suffering, and
Mhm. And they
it's
think
like,
they're protecting somebody,
yeah,
protecting
yeah,
the group. That is another little category called
the
the weaponized empath.
mm,
That is somebody who feels like, just okay, bit of history here. Back in World War I, the British newspapers started carrying this article about these evil German soldiers cutting the hands off of little Belgian babies. Turned out it was just made up by a man in the British Secret Service at the time, or whatever they called it. It was in their propaganda department. They didn't call it that, but and there were none, but there were letters and letters flowing in. Let us adopt these little Belgian babies, and also we must go fight the Hun. And so a lot of people were grabbed into it. It was all fuel to the fire. And these people aren't evil or bad. They just, they know with all that certainty that our friend Yuval talks about, that these
yeah,
people must be evil. So you, as somebody who is hurting the group by saying horrible things about them,
mm,
you are evil and they must protect the group against you. So they are a weaponized empath.
yeah, yeah, and then it becomes tricky, because I get messed up in my head with because when you're in the group, you get taught to remember how much suffering people are in when they abuse you, and to try and see them as perfect, and
Mhm.
they're under the influence of their delusions, right? So I don't use the word delusion anymore in that context, because it means something. A delusion just means not in line with the teachings to them. So
Loaded language, wonderful.
yeah, but so it becomes really complex when I try and remember, okay, this person is actually clearly really suffering, and that is sad, and they are trapped.
Hmm.
But then that reminds me of like the teaching, and then I'm like, yeah, but they're still being a wanker. Like,
You got it on the nose there. You got it on the nose, because you could talk about all the folks who go, oh, I rob liquor stores and I beat up people because I was beaten up as a kid. Well, there's tons of us who have been mistreated as children who don't rob liquor stores and don't kick puppies around. So
yeah, yeah. And it's, I don't know about you, but the what I've done now is I've turned off the notifications, because, like you said in the definition, the worst thing is that it can come anytime.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
But I realized, I was feeling abused by it, but not putting in barriers, because I felt the work is really important and I'm not going to
mm-hmm.
stop doing it. And in fact, the more abuse, whatever it is, you know, um, I'm kind of weirded out by the fact that I just did that with abuse, because that's what they can sometimes do. But I'm just aware that
Oh, I thought you were invoking Winston Churchill and you were going to go for his quote on this subject.
No, it's more that like that is used to suggest that abuse is all in your mind, which I
Oh
don't
God,
believe.
yeah.
I don't generally
It's only
believe
in
that.
your mind, yeah.
I'm open to the idea that when someone trolls me, that it's really complicated, right? So that's why I did that,
Yeah.
just so that anyone watching knows that abuse is real. It's not all in your head, and I don't
No.
believe that.
But
But
just to give you that quote from Winston Churchill, though, that is, so you have people who are angry with you, that shows that you've stood up for something in your life.
yeah, so it feels good, and it kind of feels, it's morbidly fascinating as well as being horrid, and it's really hard to um, not look at it and not respond. But
Well, yeah.
what I've done is at least turned off the notifications, so I just check it when I feel resourced enough and interested enough to do that. Whereas before, the notifications could ping at a time that I was already stressed, and then I'd see the first few words and I'd be like, what is this person saying to me? I'm going to read the whole thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be quite addictive and quite just too much stress. So I found that, I don't know about you with how often you check the comments on John's channel or your own, but
Oh, I do quite a bit, and I also like say I share them on Facebook. And do you have the same thing too, where if you're not resourced, I like that, as you say, you don't have I will actually have a little in my heart when I hear the little ding, that means that somebody has commented, because usually it's not somebody who's watched the video and is going to say, well, that was really thoughtful, or I disagree on this
usually
point
it's
but
not
not on
right.
this point. No, you get people who give their knee-jerk reaction on the picture in the thumbnail, the title of the video, what they think you're talking about. I got one where I was putting it in a cult survivor group, John's talk on new religious movement versus destructive cult, and why new religious movement just does not work as a term, because a lot of them aren't religious or new or movements. And also, we're not talking about your little kitchen witch circle, or we're talking about groups that actually there is abuse in. We don't care if somebody wants to go worship the great banana with 17 of their friends and they all are nice to each other. Go ahead, worship the great banana. I hear it has appeal. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I had to.
That was a bad point to take a sip of water.
I
Yeah, I
know.
enjoyed that,
I knew. But moving. But the thing is that I put this up in the Facebook group, and then got this comment from somebody saying, "Not all cults are religious. I was in a cult and it wasn't religious." And I was like, that was the point of the
yeah.
video.
That's the similar with a lot of the trolling I get. It's just people who've reacted to the title of the video without watching it. So
we'll have to put my pie chart
yes,
up.
I really want to. I loved the pie chart. Yeah, you're gonna have to put that.
Yeah.
Well, I enjoyed the tiny little slither that represented the number of people who'd actually watched the video and cared about the content. Yeah, that made me laugh.
Yeah, well, that was made from real experience. So no, I would get this little in my stomach, and I realized I can't do this. I can't, I have to take care of myself first.
Yeah, it's actually taken me this long. It's only really since the lockdown, or whatever you want to call this phase, and like just having less energy for the dark stuff. It's only been then that I've turned the notifications off.
No,
So,
well, I am actually really impressed just by the amount of time that you've been out. And I mean, really seriously, relatively, you're doing really great for
thank you.
how long you've been. Seriously, I've been out of mine for 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I was
More?
only involved for 18 months,
Oh,
but yeah, it's not a maths thing, is it? Like some people seem to think there's maths, like
no, because it's
the
all,
time that you've been in, the amount of time you've been in is the amount of time it will take to recover or something. And I've just let go of any of that.
no,
It's just,
no,
it's
it
so
all
enduring.
depends. It all depends. And also, it all depends on how much you were given to, as a child, to know how to take care of yourself, your own ability to take it and put it into the context psychologically. I mean, I'm a therapist's dream because I'll go and I'll read the books and I'll do the theory and I'll, but, and you've got that knowledge. So that's also impressive.
Well, it's so different, the cult stuff. Like we didn't learn anything about cultic dynamics in my
Yeah,
training, and
that needs to change because, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
especially now that so many people are coming out in droves of, say, the Watchtower, the Jehovah's Witnesses, they are exiting in droves
mm,
right
mm,
now.
yeah.
So,
Well, one thing I would definitely say, which feels hypocritical because it's a lot of what I say is basically don't do what I did, which doesn't sit that well with me, but that's just the reality.
well,
Which is
who else but then somebody who's effed up is gonna know why you shouldn't make that particular
yeah,
stupid mistake.
yeah. So one thing I would say is I wouldn't advise making a YouTube channel like only 6 months after you end your experience. And
Now that's painting a
like,
large bullet
yeah.
large
Well, I mean,
right
it's
there.
hard to say. Like for me personally, that was I I think I couldn't really integrate my experience unless I connected with people in that way and showed how it had affected me as a psychologist through that method. And that kind of brought the different sides of me together. But then at the time when I started, I was really naive, and I knew that narcissists like tend to try and ruin the reputations of people, but I didn't know about fair game at
Yeah,
that point, and I didn't know the extent that this goes on with ex cult members. So,
yeah,
um, and I was like, I don't know. Part of you is maybe still testing it out at that point
yeah.
because you're like, okay, I've read all this stuff that suggests it's a dangerous group. I've seen some what looks like evidence from other people of threats and stuff. And it's almost like you're kind of testing, well, if I do this and that's really true, then they'll probably react like this. But then when you've actually felt it in your body, you're like, oh my god, this is horrendous, but it means I'm right. So it's kind of weirdly addictive, really.
Yeah, but also there's the thing of, if you're any kind of altruistic being, you're wanting to, it's like you've just exited a burning house. You're going to want to go in and save the rest. I mean,
Yeah, it's
I
really intense.
yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know how many, I don't know any firefighters, but I'd imagine that they've had to hold back their fair share of people, no, I need to go in and, yeah,
and
because,
especially when the group teaches
mhm,
you or exacerbates a kind of martyr complex, which I'd say
oh, yeah,
most of them do.
yeah,
So
or actually self-selects for altruistic people.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I
So
mean,
how long was it after your experience that you started your own channel?
I didn't really start my own channel until years later, but that was because YouTube wasn't around when I exited my group in 1997. So all that was around at that point was AOL Online or America Online. Remember America Online? Jesus, I'm old. Uh, and no, you know, I mean, I've been married longer than Facebook has been in existence.
Yeah.
So, but I did do a blog, and there were some times, but I didn't get anything because I didn't really have a group that would follow me, because my group imploded shortly after I left because I was the only one with any money. I was in a micro group, if you less than 12 people overall at any time.
Wow. Yeah, really
Yeah,
small.
very, very, very small. And I mean, I sometimes wonder if we were just a little starter cult for the guy. And now he's got some, or did he was like a college student at the time. He was a college student, and I was a graduate student, and the others were hangers on. I was the oldest at 26.
Mm. Wow, yeah. So there was no chance of you, yeah,
I don't think
making
anybody's ever
your.
found me. I mean, once I did run into somebody who had been in the group, but that was a long time ago, and I was glad to run into her because I thought that she died.
Wow.
So it was nice to
So
run.
most of the comments that positive and challenging, will be the ones on that you see on John's channel from mostly former Scientologists. Then is that right? Or current Scientologists?
And no, what I see mostly is the one person that we've had to block so far was actually somebody who took some serious objection to John's objections to Mahayana as Buddhism. And uh, he had some, he could have had some valid points. I don't know enough about Buddhism to know. Um, but he was not nice. We'll
Yeah.
take any amount of disagreement as long as it's polite, but he was not polite. He was rude. He was abusive verbally. He was out. Some of the most comments to me are not the ones that are rude. It's the ones that are the people who are, not ex-Scientologists, but people who believe in some of the conspiracy theories or the spoon bending stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
The people who believe in some of the stuff that can be very easily debunked by anybody with a 7th grade science education. You know, all the, or we got one just a little while ago, somebody saying, she said, correction. The Bible may have been written by men, but it was inspired by God. The proof? It tells the future.
Yeah. I mean, you probably get some wilder stuff on John's channel than I do on mine. Mine is
I
pretty
don't
specific to the
know.
Newcomer tradition. So,
Yeah, we get some wild stuff. We get some, but we also get some interesting stuff. You know, it all depends.
hmm.
Um,
So will you give me the definition of trolling?
trolling though, in my opinion, and this is just mine, is doing something to get a rise out of somebody, to deliberately get a reaction from them.
Mm.
Now, some people call trolling things like, there's a great little thing that I've put up on my Facebook page where it's how to troll your friends on Facebook, and it's got a little play button on it. But you press the play button, it's not a play button, it's just an image of a play button, but everybody clicks it. You know, see, that's funny. That's, you know, but a lot of it is like, there was one guy in one of the ex-Scientology forums who would deliberately say racist or sexist or bigoted things in order to get a rise out of somebody. If he knew and in the early days of me, I still have a very thin line. I really can't stand when anybody expresses something that's a racist sort of sentiment. Call me intolerant of intolerance, but I really don't like racism.
Mm.
And so it's one of my personal bugaboos. And somebody who knows that and wants to get a rile out of me will say something racist. And that's
Okay. Yeah.
or insult John. You want to see sparks fly out of Spike's eyes? Insult John.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, isn't it? Because yeah, you got to watch that. Like,
I
yeah,
know.
further for John.
I've been called I've been called his Atack's dog.
Well,
What's
luckily,
wrong
I
with
know.
being a dog? Dogs are loyal.
Yeah. I mean, I know that John would. He would be happy to have you disobey him. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, of course. And sometimes
yeah.
I do deliberately disobey him or tell him, "No, you're wrong about that point." We'll go back and forth, But and also, he's a cat person. Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, at some point, maybe I'll tease him in a video. We've already joked about it in person about how, yeah, like his our first video was kind of monologue-y, and some people commented, and that was funny. That trolling was, I mean, that wasn't trolling because some people were actually like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I think you spoke too much."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah. But we've had a nice, we've had a chat about that, and he's definitely allowed me to talk a lot since then. So
He's definitely yeah, he's got some interesting things, but no, he's always told me I'm supposed to come up with, if he says something that I know is bull, I will call him on it.
yeah. I mean, I haven't understood a lot of I haven't read a lot of the things that former members who've left groups have read like years ago, so yeah, I remember I was just sitting there like, yeah, I can't comment on this, but okay, later at some point I'll have something to say.
Oh, that's funny, because I couldn't get enough of exit literature.
Yeah, I've got a
Every damn
huge
thing I could
reading
read.
list.
I'm sorry.
I have a huge reading list, basically.
Yeah, well, that doubled when I met John too, because you gotta meet this, you gotta read that. It's like, and I already have a shelf load full of ex-Scientologist books, ex-JW books.
Gonna need some audiobooks in there so that you can switch it up a little.
Switch it up a little bit. Well, yes, if it weren't for my Kindle, I don't know what I'd do.
Yeah.
But let's see. We were actually on the impersonal on a massive scale, hidden also. If you have a life other than the computer, your people in your life might not know that you're being cyberbullied. And also depending on how it is, like one lady I know got driven out of a discussion forum that she felt quite attached to, because one of the members started sending her private messages and commenting rudely and the moderators wouldn't stop it because they didn't see it, and so she left eventually.
And the weirdest, actually, I remember at the time in your pie chart, I remember saying I loved it, and I was like, can I please add a category for people who troll and then delete it, so you still get the notification and no one else sees it, but you experienced it, and then it's gone.
Yes, we get a few of those occasionally where people will actually say some comment. Now, I didn't even realize why I wasn't seeing those comments on YouTube. I was seeing them in the notifications, but I wasn't seeing them on the page. It took me forever to figure that out. It was
Yeah.
actually with the help of one of our nicer viewers who I saw that. I was like, did you comment before? And it just didn't show up. Oh, I deleted it because I thought it was too silly. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I get some of the threats that I've got, and then they get deleted.
Oh,
Those feel like more insidious because, or like I've had ones that basically say they're going to self-destruct. This message will disappear in the next few minutes so that other people can't read it.
how mature. Oh yeah, it's that you know what that strikes for me. That strikes for me the same chord as the kid who pokes the other kid when the kid teacher isn't looking, so that the first kid whacks him when the teacher is looking.
Yeah, well, I get those ones are actually, they seem to be from like a Tibetan Buddhist troll that knows that the NKT have dangerous aspects, and so they've sent me warning threats that then disappear. And they also send me patronizing, oh, it was so weird, a few weeks back,
Mm-hmm.
saying how much I'd grown, and they doubted, and they use the word we. So we are proud of you, Michelle. We didn't think that you had the strength of character to keep going with this, and to have other people come forward with their testimonies and stuff. And it seemed to be from the same group.
And it could be that they're really trying to be nice, but have no idea how it's coming across too.
Yeah. And I just
Um,
responded instantly, like, I don't have to prove my strength of character to you. Like,
mhm,
I am just happy that I made it through last summer. Like,
mhm.
I'm just happy that, like,
Well, we're happy too.
you know, that I'm out of crisis point with things. Like, so basically, F off with your patronizing, you know. Yeah, so you're right. They may have good intentions, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's hard sometimes to judge, especially when it's text only.
Yeah.
Very hard to judge. I know that I've been misunderstood, but I usually will then go overboard and apologize profusely. And yeah. Let's see. Also, cyberbullying is public too, because even though it's hidden, it can be public too, so that you're, um, there was back when John and I first met, and we did this conference in Toronto. I almost said Toledo, in Toronto, and when I came home, I was expecting, oh, everybody's going to be so happy that we went and did this conference. And instead, we got slammed by a
Right.
bunch of ex-Scientologists who somehow thought that we were doing a money-making venture. It's like, no, we didn't make anything back, because unfortunately, the guy who ran it decided to sell the videos on Vimeo, and that's a big trigger point for ex-Scientologists. Don't
Yeah.
ever try to do a fundraiser, and ask them for money, because they've been hurt too much in their wallets for that
Yeah.
not to be a bruised point. And I know where they're coming from, but unfortunately, they decided that we were the ones, and we were profiteering off the graves of children.
Yeah, well, the idea that you could be making money seems to really, yeah, to be difficult in that way. But also, I get accused of just wanting fame or
And
clout, or
attention. It's
yeah,
like, excuse
through
me.
what I'm doing. That was particularly strong after I was on BBC One on the debate show. That those comments are like became stronger. That you want some kind of following.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
I
it's
got that. Yeah, I got that too, because I've written, and on my YouTube channel, a whole shiffer load of songs about Scientology, and songs about JWs. And I am a performer. I do want everybody to listen to me sing, because, oh, darn it, that's that's just, it's in my personality. It's as much
Yeah.
as the color of my eyes or my blood type. I am a performer. But that doesn't mean that I'm a narcissist. That just means that I'm an exhibitionist.
Yeah, and you like to express yourself, so
I do. I
yeah,
do.
yeah,
But
yeah.
but so I got that a lot too. But
I get that a
so
lot. That's
we got,
pretty common from Buddhists because
yeah.
they're of the idea that you should be um, reducing your attachment to um, your sense of self, basically, and your yeah. So
My group
and
has
it,
ego.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And actually, it's really radical for me. Like, I've never done anything like this before. I don't normally, to be able, and it's a privilege actually, to be able to express myself and a really painful part of my life experience and a really complicated, like one that still causes me a lot of embarrassment, which may or may not be, I know that that's shame, and that as Yuval would say, you just stepped in dog shit, like you didn't betray you, and you're not a piece of shit yourself.
And
But the reality is most former members experience a lot of shame still, but I get to be authentic with that and be playful with it and connect to other people who had similar experiences, and we get to express ourselves together, and other people may watch that, and that's like really not something I've ever done in my life, that authentically, and had the opportunity to do. So I think it's but if you're seen to have any kind of narcissistic traits,
or
then
what they think are
yeah,
narcissistic traits.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
the word narcissist gets thrown around so much, just like the word cult gets thrown around.
yeah.
Like I just got accused of being culty because all I was doing was sharing this man's videos. It's like, that's what I do. I put John's videos out there so that you might actually enjoy them. You might learn something from them, or you might just get a knee-jerk reaction to the title.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh dear, there's so many layers to it. But
Oh yeah.
I even get someone took the piss out of me. To be fair, it was like a friend, and they didn't troll me with it, but because I've been saying trolling rather than trolling, and
I thought
because
the trolling was very 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 sweet. I thought that was a nice little
well,
accent.
I just in my head, because I imagine like a kind of ghastly troll. Like that's how I've been doing it in my head. Like yeah. Like we had these. We've spoken before, haven't we, about the dolls?
The little
Um,
girls. I'll put a picture of them up.
yeah, and they're not like, but that's what I think of. And they're not. They're not even kind of nasty characters.
No, no,
I think there's something in my childhood I remember, like a cartoon or something about
there
a
was.
troll being a sort of um, a gross, nasty character. So that's how I
Billy
imagine them.
Goat Gruff, the three Billy
Ah,
Goats Gruff, and
okay.
the bridge and the little.
Yeah, like I
Yes,
can't
Billy Rabbit.
visualize it, but that's how I've been feeling when I think about trolls. So yeah,
We'll put in a
and
link to my "Don't Feed the Trolls" song too.
yeah, I think people need to see that.
But
And you actually, you have a good point, because it
but
is hard not to feed them.
oh God, it's so hard. It
Yeah.
really is, because I mean, I'll put up another picture. I can't go to sleep. Somebody on the internet disagrees with me. I know. And also, I don't know about you, but I have this horrible, horrible, horrible thing in my mind where all I have to do is just keep talking to them and keep explaining myself. And after a while, if I just explain myself well enough and long enough and hard enough, they will understand and will be friends.
Yeah, that's been your experience. That's nice.
No, that is not my experience at all. But I still believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my
On this
God.
planet, it has never worked once.
No, no. Yeah. And actually, some former members have really helped me when I've had urges to like make more pages about some of the stuff I've received, or
Mhm.
to really like share it and they're like, do you know what, because but it's really hard, isn't it? Because even though you know that the person maybe wants a rise out of you and they're getting it, it's just so, it can be just so triggering, like especially if it's material related to the group that you yourself were in, and you've been attacked by that group. You've got a lot, going on for you internally, and oh my god, like I didn't feel in control sometimes when I would get trolls, and I would like want to, just like show, it's the urge to show the world what I am receiving, basically. That would feel really
show
hard. Yeah,
and
like
show
people
them,
pretending.
everybody, just how nasty they are. And yeah, we all, that's a very natural thing. The other thing, that the one that gets me is the all cult members are stupid, because I don't have my old group to torture me. So what I see instead is the people who are, because there's a lot of people who watch Scientology who have nothing to do with it, who've watched, half season of Leah Remini's show and are suddenly an expert on Scientology and cults in general. Not. And will say, well, I don't know how these people get involved. They must be stupid and they deserve everything they get. And that I find that so hard not to respond to and go, well, actually, blah, 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 end up sounding pedantic, pompous, and
Yeah, because that's the trouble. If you respond when you're triggered, then you can speak as if, and also it's hard because it's like the person commenting thinks that they know more than you, and then so really get the urge to dispel that, shall we say.
And on the other side, a lot of the people who are moved to comment is because they think they know more than the person presenting or sharing the video or whatever, so that you've got the person who tells me that not all cults are religious because the title seems to indicate that I think that, even though that's not what the title's saying at all. Or the person saying, who I did one song, Don't Throw Mud on the Name of God, talking about the sexual abuse in a lot of the born again Christian sort of religions, or the abusive groups of that stripe. And what did I get on that? I got somebody who wasn't caring about the abuse, but was very, very concerned that I wasn't calling God Jehovah.
Wow. Yeah.
And he knew more than me, because he knew that Jehovah was Jehovah, and you should not, and God is just a job title.
And it's hard, isn't it, not to, it's so weird when you've been in the group and the group is narcissistic and they see other people outside the group as more mundane and more ignorant. But then when you leave and you learn all about cultic dynamics and you think, well, I know more than you now. And I'm not in this narcissistic place with it anymore.
Well, it's a very human thing, isn't it? Though we all know more than, and those of us, those who know more than everybody else, or think they know more than us, annoy those of us who do know everything. No.
Yeah. So then you feel, but then if I have reacted, I then feel mean afterwards. Like,
oh yeah,
I tried to humiliate that person back, or like when they're not able, when they're under the influence of all this stuff, and like that doesn't make. I like the way that Matthew Remski writes about it, really in a nuanced way. So like the idea that the person who's left the group is the survivor, and the person who trolls them is an abuser, is a bit limited, really, in terms of the comment is like an internalized cry for help, and it's also a survivor voice.
Oh yeah.
So it's just that this person is still involved, but they're enduring really long term, sometimes, exploitation and mind control. So they're still a survivor. They're still probably a very resilient, suffering person. So when I first read that, I was like, ooh, ouch, yeah. Like because you can get into a place where you're like, yeah, you just see them. Maybe it's a phase you have to go through at first. Yeah, where
It
you
might
just
be. There's also, because what I'm thinking of is and this is very unfortunate, and I've seen this both in ex-JW and in ex-Scientologist folks, is that all of a sudden they forget what it was like to be in almost and start
yeah.
treating those still in. They start demonizing those still in. They start saying they're horrible people and they're awful, and uh, or even people who have never been in, who have become, if you will, again, weaponized empaths, going, we've got to fight this cult. And John talks about the story of one guy who was in the Sea Org and was living a miserable life, and somebody came up and spat on him.
Mm.
That's not right.
Mm.
Nope, you don't shout at an abused spouse. You don't
Yeah.
you don't slap an abused spouse for being an abused spouse. You don't yell at a cult member for being a cult member.
No.
But I see that a lot in the X pages, is they're all dummies in there and they all deserve to die. And no, no,
No.
no, no. You were them, remember, guys? Or even the people who are just watching, because there's a lot of watchers now out there. I mean, I understand. I was a Scientology watcher, still am a Scientology watcher. Turned it into a career.
Just not one that makes much money.
No, but one of these days I'm gonna write the sequel to Piece of Blue Sky. Yeah. I can't though. Chris Shelton stole my title.
Well, eventually I'll get around to reading some of this. I tried reading Little Miss
No, I mean, I
Lovely.
came up with Atack. I said, I when we first met, and we all first met in 2015 in Toronto, and I said, what about Atack to Xenu? And then he's Scientology, A to Xenu. He took out the Atack. Though he probably came up with himself afterwards and then wondered why it had popped so easily into his head.
The Scientology stuff just blows my mind. Like I
Yeah.
tried to just read a little bit of Little Miss Lovely, but it was when I just discovered the defamation website about me, and so when I read about them
The
printing,
Unbreakable Miss Lovely, yeah,
oh,
that's
that's it, yeah. When I read about, yeah, because I had no idea the extent that Fair Game went to. So I
Paulette
started
Cooper
to panic about those things happening to me, and then I had to stop reading it. So yeah.
I understand. I've actually had the honor to meet Paulette Cooper, and she is an amazing, amazing woman. But yeah, and I don't know if for your listeners, fair game is the name is from a policy in Scientology where anybody who's an SP, a suppressive person, is fair game. You can be lied to, sued, tricked, or utterly destroyed, deprived of life, liberty, property. And then a lot of the current Scientologists will say, oh, but that issue was canceled. No, the name was canceled. He put out an order saying the name was canceled because it caused bad PR, but at the bottom it says, this does not change how you treat SPs.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's the whole load of ex-Scientologists who think that L. Ron Hubbard was great and it's just Miscavige who did all the bad stuff. And you do anything that even smells like, you're upset at Hubbard, and they'll get all, no, that wasn't what Scientology was.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a middle ground where you're out of the group, but you're still kind of in the mindset?
Oh yeah, that's really enduring for a lot of people. There are lots of people who still believe that for a really long time that Kelsang Gyatso is pure, but his teachings were warped and the organization became corrupt, but he's still an enlightened being, or he's still their spiritual father in a way. And it seems really, I've been told by some former members who still receive quite a lot of abuse from current members. If you want to sort of assume that it's that, then that like they will cut you up, like, that was the sort of phrase that this person used, was like, if people will die for their guru. So and at one point they were apparently in the teacher training program, like, they were encouraged to take bullets for him, and they were encouraged to jump. They were asked whether they would jump off a cliff for him. And so, I mean, the younger members, not so much, because they'll never meet him, and because it's changed over the years. But the people who've been around a long time and who were involved a long time, a lot of them really, it takes them a really long time to see that there might be any faults in Kelsang Gyatso. It's just the idea that the Dharma is pure, that scripture is pure, and it just seems to be really it seems, I would say it's about 50-50 maybe, but obviously I don't have stats on it, but I would say that lots of people still believe that the Dharma is pure, but it just gets warped by individuals. So
it took me until even though I left my group in 97, it took me until 2012 to get rid of all the magical thinking. But that was because I was in a non-abusive, pagan-esque, new agey, fluff bunny social circle, and all of a sudden everybody's just started spouting the most inane. You remember 2012, it was the world was supposed to end because the Mayan calendar. Well, if you were in any kind of new agey pagan-esque group at the time, that was a big thing. And I remember losing all respect for one guy because he started telling us that now we are going to be aligned with the center of the universe. It's like, there is no center of an infinite space, and every point is already aligned with it in a center if there's only 2 points. And no, this moment just doesn't happen once every 62,000 years. Why would you even know to measure that? And these zodiac signs that you're saying we're going from Piscean to Aquarian, excuse me, but those constellations have no relation to each other in reality. Those stars that make up those constellations are millions of light years apart and are only seen in that shape from here on our planet, and have no other relation to each other except in our own shared cultural imagination. And I mean, there was one gal I knew, she sent out a group email telling everybody in our group that the Illuminati were going to be overthrown by the secret masters at the opening of the 2012 Olympics in London. You were there. Tell me, how did that go?
Wow. This stuff is just,
I know.
The magical thinking.
I know.
I mean, I think it pervades in the case of Buddhism. I think unfortunately, I think therapies also can tie into this idea that you can control the world with your mind, with your mental state.
Oh yeah.
Because even cognitive behavioral therapy suggests that you can manipulate your thoughts to be more positive, and and all the law of attraction stuff. So I think there's even it took me a while to see that as magical thinking, because there was so much other magical thinking that was clearer, but
that because I mean, they take the basic, well, if you have a better outlook on stuff, you're going to make more positive choices. But that doesn't mean that just because if things like The Secret worked, the Titanic wouldn't have sunk because everybody was having a hell of a party. Wait, let's see. But and getting back to the whole idea of trolling and or bullying, a lot of that is used for a hell of a lot of victim blaming. Well, that's why you're not it's not working for you, because
Yeah.
you don't have the right mindset.
Yeah. I still get that. And I find those really difficult not to respond to when it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's all down to your perception, basically.
And they want you to respond. That's the essence of trolling, is they're looking for a response. Let's see, other ways, methods of cyberbullying. I've got harassment and dissing, which I think we've covered. That's basically, actually going, you're ugly. Y-O-U-R, ugly. I always get that one, without the apostrophe. Those are the ones that the hardest for me to not to react to, are the ones that are like, oh, come on. I'm just going to correct your grammar here.
Yeah.
Spike.
It's really hard not to do that. I get urges to do that.
But I should. I don't. But oh God, sometimes. Hate pages, about that. That's a big one. Intolerance, where you're actually starting to go after not just the one person, but a whole bunch of people. That's all. Image sharing, where your post, say they found a photo of you that was really, really embarrassing. It was that one real wild night that you wanted to forget, where you had the lampshade on your head and they had you posed with the cardboard cutout of an orangutan, and and then they got a photo of you. They're going to put it online.
Yeah, it's weird. I thought yeah, like I'm assuming at some point that screenshots of my videos where I looked manic or anxious would appear online. They resisted the urge to post them on the actual website about me, because I guess that would make it very, very clear that they were not a clinical psychologist, even though that was already very clear.
That website, I got to say something, that website, they seem to subscribe to the words on pretty pictures equals truth.
Oh God. Well, it's actually taken down now.
Oh yes, that's right. Right.
Yeah.
Outing is another one. Say you'd sent a message to somebody saying, I'm really feeling horrible. They would take that and they would out you. Or they'd say they found one of your journals that you'd had or something.
Oh yeah. Like, that they're going to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and try and exaggerate. And I think because they can find something that has a tiny kernel of truth and then exaggerate it and make it look like you're that you're a lawbreaker, that you're unethical. That was their aim.
Crazy. You're ready to murder. Look, I've got a pair of scissors.
Yeah, it's just,
I must be a murderer.
Yeah, because there's like a tiny element of truth in there that they've exaggerated. They know that it will trigger the shit out of you.
Exactly.
Because you can't do all of it.
Like for John, I mean, in Scientology, he wrote 2 life histories, and every member of Scientology has to write these life histories, and you have to. There was one where this kid left, and he was about in his 20s when he left, and then they put out a document saying that he had been, before he'd been in Scientology, he had been a pimp and a drug smuggler. He was 10 when he joined. But they had exaggerated all of his things. That they say, why doesn't ex-celebrity leave Scientology? Well, the moment that they leave, all of their auditing sessions will go public. Let's see, doxing is one that was when the Sandy Hook shooting went down, and the people who said, "Oh, that's just a conspiracy," they actually found the documents of one of the families of victims and put it out online and put where he was and where you could find him, and death threats, death threats, death threats. And he had to move several times. Doxing, basically taking your information and making it public, like saying, I mean, I say I'm living on the shores of lovely Lake Champlain, but I ain't giving you my street address.
Mm, mm. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of that in XNKT. I've seen it in the comments section of a tricycle article where former members will try and dig up everything about your past and write it in the comments section. Yeah. Or, well, people who are still kind of enamored with the NKT but have left or been kicked out, they're the ones that do that. Yeah.
Good friend of mine, suddenly a bunch of the exes who were infighting with each other, they found his boyfriend's real name and broadcast it. And they're in a part of the world where it's, in the small towns, it's still not okay to be homosexual. So that was quite an issue. And then there's two-faced friending. This is a one that another friend of mine got to, where somebody friended him and, "Oh, I'm just out of Scientology, but it seems really that the X world is a little bit strange. Could you please tell me who to stay away from?" And him, being helpful, thought, "Well, I'll tell you that these guys are kind of trouble and these guys are kind of rowdy, and well, don't you know, she was already in touch with them." And so, and was passing information back and forth. I have a couple of Facebook friends that I'm not sure. They might be Scientologists or somebody else who's trying to grab information. So I'm just very, very chatty, and I talk about my parakeets.
That's the trouble about friending people on Facebook that you haven't.
You haven't met in person. And so basically when they say, "Hi, how are you?" I'll go, "Oh, I'm fine. The parakeets are doing fine." And I talk about the goddamn weather for 30 minutes. Because I can do that.
Yeah, a current member. I mean, I get all sorts of strange emails and Facebook messages, but someone who's sort of transitioning away from the group, I think, asked me for my address because she wanted to be pen pals. And I just had to say, "I'm really sorry, I can't give you my address. Like, even if this is genuinely just to write to me." Sometimes, I mean, I get selfies from men who want to talk to me.
God, yeah. Well, that's just part of being a woman on the internet.
It is. But yeah, it's when they're also a former member, that's when it gets.
Yeah. No, every once in a while I'll get something from somebody who, "Hi there, sweetie, saw your photo." It's like, did you see that I've been married for 20 years? And I'm old enough to be your mother?
Oh God. Anyway, we're off track now, aren't we?
Oh yes, but let's see. Hacking. Hacking. This is one where, say somebody sets up an account that looks like you's got, using your profile picture, pretending to be you, and then starts posting all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. I'm surprised that hasn't happened yet for me. I did think that it would. But I don't worry about that too much because I think it would be easy to show.
It's easy to show that it's not, but it can. The one time somebody did that to me, and I don't know whether they were Scientology or ex-Scientology, it was laughable.
Yeah.
For one thing, they used bad grammar. Please, come on. I'd rather cut off my right arm than misuse an apostrophe.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Sock puppets. Now, this is one that was practically invented by Scientology. Sock puppets, right? Everybody knows what a sock puppet is these days. But back in the old BBS days, the old bulletin board services of the late 90s, God, I'm old. They used to do where, and I want to send out a shout out to my friend Tori Chrisman. She's on Tori Magoo 44 over YouTube. She was one of the first ex-Scientologists that I started watching her channel, and she's an amazing woman. But she was, while she was in Scientology, she was the one that set up a whole bunch of fake internet accounts, and you can go on her channel and she'll give you the whole story. It's wonderful. But basically what they would do is she and her boss in Scientology would set up little sock puppet accounts and then would argue in between themselves to pretend to be
Yeah.
different people and create arguments, so that after, and they would deliberately start making people fight amongst themselves so that then they would not spend any time talking about Scientology.
Mm, mm. Yeah. I'm not sure if, yeah, some of the trolling that I get is kind of using the pseudonyms that take the piss. It tends to be more what actually, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but this is what really disturbs me and messes with my mind, is when the person accuses me of just using logical fallacies. And they themselves clearly have read all about logical fallacies, but are not spotting the way in which the cult does it to them or
Mm-hmm.
the world.
Mm-hmm.
And they go straight for like all of the logic in my arguments, but with avoiding any of the emotion in it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no empathy, obviously. And yeah, that's the stuff that really messes with me. It's like, yeah, how does this person know all about logical fallacies? And
Because confirmation bias is a thing, and so that no matter how much you know about you can't see it if it's your own stuff. It's
yeah.
like seeing your own nose. I can't.
Yeah, yeah,
um oh, here's trolling. It's down at the bottom. Trolling, deliberately saying hateful or rude things in order to get a rise out of someone.
mm,
Yeah, deliberately going out of your, and with the idea of not even so much to bug somebody as to just get a rise out of anybody. But like I said a while before, sometimes depending on the intent, there I've seen stuff that has been called trolling that has been absolutely delightfully funny, because it was just sort of making people go, what the heck? It's like an April Fool's joke. I've always
yeah.
been addicted to April Fool's jokes. Well, we have some helpful hints.
Yeah.
Helpful hints on how to handle cyberbullies. Darn,
Okay.
I had to end it. Above all, remain calm. Step
That
away
doesn't
from the
happen.
computer.
Do you know, and it's really annoying because when the group teach you about non-reaction and not retaliating, that
Mm-hmm.
makes you, again, it messes with your mind so much, because you're like, I have a right to be angry.
Yeah, you have a right to be angry. Yeah.
And it also feels like a really strong defense, like in a way, when it's been happening and I've been defending myself and reacting, that's felt good. It's like, okay, no, I won't let you talk to me like this. And I've
Mm-hmm.
never been like that before. So it feels like a development for me personally, but of course the
Mm-hmm.
group sees it as retaliation.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, and I don't like being told to be calm.
Oh yeah. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I can't
Tell
think
me
of
in right now.
anybody.
This
I
helps
can't think
me.
of anybody who enjoys being told, now calm
Yeah,
down.
exactly. And
No,
so that first helpful hint has just pissed me off, really.
it's invalidating. Well, yeah, it's invalidating but at the same time, there's a difference between, yes, I have a right to feel angry, but am I going to play into their
Exactly.
hands
Yeah,
by,
yeah, yeah,
so remain, not calm down, but remain.
yeah,
Don't play into them,
yeah,
don't, and also don't, You know, somebody was taking me to task saying, yeah, because I was getting on some sort of thing about not about if you're going to insult somebody, at least do it grammatically. She said, well, sometimes the autocorrect on my phone doesn't put it out correctly. It's like, that's why you read everything you post before you hit send. If humanity could only learn one thing from the internet, I think it should be think before you hit send.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely recommend just like taking a few days, possibly, ideally, before you respond, because it can last a really long time, the
Oh yeah,
urge.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I wish I could follow my own advice, but you know.
I know, yeah. It's only working for me now because I've turned off the notifications. So by the time I check, it has been a few days.
Oh.
And yeah, well, it's been a few days since they posted it anyway. And somehow that takes some of the feeling of urgency out of it.
Mhm.
To when like I've just received it, and then I feel like they're kind of we're still, even though they're far away and I don't know who they are, it feels kind of very live.
Yeah,
Whereas,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of different.
It is. Let's see. Remain calm. Know your rights. Whatever form you're on, review the terms and conditions and the rights and responsibilities. Find out whether or not. I happen to know that there are forums where it's expected that people are going to be nasty.
Yeah, yeah.
Expected.
Well, Google has a policy that you can ask for abusive websites, or I don't remember what the exact terms and conditions were, and the way it was worded,
Yeah.
to be delisted underneath your name, and they refused to do that for the website about me. That was the
Mm.
URL was my name. So I was like, okay, if this doesn't break the rules, I just give up, thinking that anything really breaks the internet rules. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if this
And,
doesn't, then
and
and
I,
also the website host also didn't think
yeah.
it broke any rule.
Yeah, well, that's when you find out his name and then write it in red. No, 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 no. But yeah, I mean, like one friend of mine who very unhelpfully said that the rule of the internet was if you get upset, it's your fault. And it's like, excuse me, what kind of abusive? And remember what we were all told in school. I mean, I know I was told this. That is, they're only doing it because they know it gets you upset. As if that's some sort of excuse. As if
Yeah,
that's some way of making that somehow makes it all right. Because after all, they're only doing it because it makes you upset. I'm sorry, but as far as I know, somebody who does something because they know it's hurting another person, that's to me the very definition of a sadist.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Let's see. Document the abuse. Save emails or messages to demonstrate what has been said. And do not reciprocate.
Really? That's what it says?
Well,
Like,
that's what I said.
we're not gonna
This is something we've been written. Do not reciprocate. A bully's favorite tactic is prod their victim.
yeah. Well, we're not
And
going to be able to manage this, Spike.
I know these are helpful hints. They're helpful hints. They're not ironclad rules. But yeah, reciprocating, not reciprocating, because okay, say somebody says you're a stinker, and I say you're a poopy head. Well, do you think that they're not going to put you're a poopy head and show everybody just how I said they were a poopy head without
Yeah.
with their you're a stinker cut out very
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
or like the little kids in the classroom. And I mean, I wish I had had somebody to tell me this years and years ago, you know, because little Bobby would poke me with a pencil and I'd turn around and whap him. Now the teacher did not see him poking me with a pencil, but she did see me whapping him.
Yeah.
Who do you think got sent to the principal's office?
Yeah. Yeah, I have been definitely worried about Well, I've been told to be very careful about what I say in any public internet forum, really, because it will all be used against me, and it has been. And I think I still sometimes forget that, because because that feels like another.
We all forget that sometimes.
Yeah, and also part of me doesn't want to, because I so badly want to express myself
Yeah,
and
yeah.
not be told what I can and can't say. So I don't always. I think part of you just you gets urges to, like, to just say it how it is at the time, because it kind of feels healthier
Mm-hmm.
to do
Well,
that.
there's a couple creative options. One is kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
Respond absolutely beautifully kind and sweet. I mean, what was it? Your clever prime minister of yours who perfected the polite put down.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But also then you can also turn off the machine and yell at your pillow. Or what I do is I make pie charts about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
made
Yeah.
it. I've made not only the pie chart, but the should you comment on this post flow chart. Let's see. Report the abuse responsibly if you can. You tried. It
Mm.
made bupkis, but at least you tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
The
But
police told me that it was just a matter of defamation, and it was between me and the cult, and to basically let it go because it just wasn't worth it. And because they tell me to let go, that pissed me off too.
yeah, yeah, and also not worth it. Well, who is it? Who's to judge what
Yeah.
it's worth if you're not the one who's getting it?
Mm.
Yeah, invalidation of emotions is just a horrible, horrible, horrible thing.
Yeah. Well, I guess to me at the time, it also represented how much they wanted to destroy me. That may mean they are doing other things. So I was
Mhm.
also trying to say, look, this is happening and this is really serious. And I don't know what else I may be at risk of. And I didn't feel that that was taken seriously,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, I mean, if you're in the, I mean, geez, I keep on mentioning John, but he's got such a fascinating story and such a fascinating. They did everything to this man, so he becomes this case study in and of himself. I mean, he had a guy walking up and down the pavement of his house with a sign saying, "Stop tearing apart our family and start supporting yours,"
Mm.
because somebody had figured out that that was what was going to make him the most angry. Because
Yeah.
Scientology and bull baiting, they're taught to do your buttons.
Yeah, it
So
sounds
that
really horrific in
so that I've been
Scientology.
told by I was once again I'd shared something on Facebook, and the woman responded only to the title, and I said, well, what do you think about the video? Well, I don't have time to watch the video, but this is what I think about the title, and this is what it's like, well, you had time to watch to do this whole thing. And then I said, it's just really bugs me. And she said, I'm not responsible for your triggers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, 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 yeah. God.
And then she deliberately went further and said, I know that you were in a cult, Spike, but this is not the time or place to discuss it.
Mm,
I was like,
mm.
and at that point, I knew I couldn't respond because no matter what I was going to do was going to be twisted. But she was already putting me on even though you could go through the thread and see that I hadn't mentioned it, I wasn't talking about it, but still, she brought it up as if I had
Yeah.
been.
Well, even if you own it and say,
Yeah.
like, I gave them ammunition, and
Mm.
at times I knew I was doing that, and I still carried on
Mm.
because I was just upfront and said, yes, my childhood was tough.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that that probably made me more vulnerable to getting drawn into this group for these reasons. Um, and so I just didn't even try to hide anything, because I knew that they would say it all. And I thought, so if I openly admit all of this and how it was tough, and then they use that to humiliate me, then that's just going to reveal what I'm saying, which is that the group lacks an understanding of mental health and empathy. So go right ahead, because that's really just going to confirm everything that I'm saying is true. So yeah, I actually gave them, and sometimes I still get urges to give them ammunition. Like I was
Yeah.
saying to a friend a few weeks back now, this urge is past. I kind of want them to like character assassinate me as like promiscuous somehow. I just feel like I would really enjoy that. Like, I'm not gonna say anything like online that maybe they'll use this, although they've taken the website down now.
Oh, yeah.
How like a narcissist always character assassinates you as a slut, right?
What was it
I
Oscar
just
Wilde said? There's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
It's sometimes a hard thing, because it's like, why do I have to be the bigger person? Why do I have to be the grown-up? Why do I have to be polite when they seem to be able to say any damn thing that pops into their head? Why do I have to be? It's because
Yeah.
in the end, it's permanent. Everything that you put up online is going to be up there forever.
I know, yeah. It's a terrifying
Unless it's a
thought.
file you need, then you can never find it again.
Oh God, yeah. Like when I was really in the midst of just processing things and just verbal diarrhea to the camera, and like
Mm-hmm.
I had no concept of, or I didn't care whether it was permanent or not, or yeah, I really didn't care. Now I care, and I'm like, oh God.
You know, a nice little thing is a teenager named Trisha Prabhu, and I can put the link in the descriptions below. She designed a helpful little app for teenagers on their phone that will say, are you sure you really want to send this? And just ask them, do you want to send this? Are you sure? And think about whether or not you'd feel like, like your friend who said, oh, we're all so proud of you. Maybe if they'd thought, now I already have that filter where, to the obsessive end, where I always go, oh God, what are they going to think? Which makes it all the harder for me to see when people are being rude, because I think, I don't do that. I can't do that. I break out in hives.
Yeah, sometimes it really just blows my mind. Like, how can this person sleep at night, after having said that?
Mm-hmm. Because you're either not real, or you deserve it, or you should just stomach it anyway, because I'm not responsible for your triggers.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I do is I make it into comedy a lot of the time now. If I'm really miffed, I'll write a
Oh,
song
the comedy is the great stuff. Yeah.
Yes, it is. But yeah, um it's definitely a tool that cults use, but it's definitely a tool that almost everybody uses. But with the cult dynamics, it's a totally different animal, because bullying was used to subject us. We were bullied into being good little members, and now it's being used to kind of either hoover us back or make us feel bad about having ever left.
Yeah.
Or
Absolutely.
even being used to tear apart groups, because Scientology still goes into, and I'm not sure that it's not done by JWs either, where they'll go into X websites and they will stir up all sorts of stuff to make sure everybody stays divided and fighting against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. it's funny when, like, I find it particularly weird because I was never a true believer or a sort of total convert, and lots of people live in the buildings of NKT centres just because they can, like,
Mm-hmm.
or because they've been through a breakup or a period of homelessness, or they're a little bit intrigued, but they're not a true believer. And then I get trolled with things that like suggest that I should have been, or like I was taking the piss by being there if I wasn't a true believer. It's like, I paid rent. Like, I regret that I paid them rent because that helped them to expand. But
Mm.
yeah, but then now you're gonna troll me to say that, like, I don't have enough faith. Like, I never agreed to have faith.
One thing that I was thinking of, and this is the big takeaway from all of trolling and cyberbullying, is it's not about you.
Mm.
It's about their projection of what you mean to them in relation to the group, or even their own demons, their own whatevers. It's not about you because they don't know you. With all the folks who have said horrible things about me, none of them, literally none of them, 0% of them have met me in person, know who I am, know who I am really honestly. Well, we have had a wonderful time here. We have indeed.
Yeah, we have. It was great talking to you, and yeah, like, great to talk about something that is, well, I mean, both light and kind of distressing for us, and
You
yeah.
got to be able to laugh at it. Otherwise, that's why I make so much stupid comments over these, and I make such stupid songs about Scientology and the Jehovah's Witnesses. The one that's really popular, and I'm becoming mildly famous among some of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, is my song, You Can Have a Pet Tiger.
I like that one. That's my
Oh, yeah.
favorite. Yeah.
It wrote itself. It literally wrote itself.
All right. Pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure talking to you.
Bye.
Bye. If humanity could only learn one thing from the internet, I think it should be think before you hit send.